it's one concerted message, but they make it look like it's coming through millions of different voices and faces. Like Big Brother's been decentralized, but there is a Big Brother. But if Big Brother has a personality, he's a narcissist. And that's because that personality type, by definition, is going to demand the total obedience and worship of anybody around it. And if they don't worship, if they don't codependently bond with that narcissist, they get rejected. And the power of the narcissist is the power to reject and to excoriate the rejects and to make them into the bad guys, the enemies, the anti-vaxxers, the conspiracists. So again, the mass media is a narcissist, and the people who are fixated on it are in a form of codependent bondage, and they're technically afraid. It's like Stockholm Syndrome. They're afraid to go against it. That's ultimately what it comes down to. It's actually a form of emotional abuse. Going through your comments. Thinks he's a penguin. 101 says, all those pills are bitter no matter what the color. Lean says, like you said, the politics are like a horseshoe. Their ends separate, but adjacent weirdly. Yeah, the horseshoe theory of politics. I was kind of looking at that model because the left and the right fringes, I used to think it was a cliche, but then I started noticing soy boys and Proud Boys. Neither of them represent mainstream or reasonable political thought. And just the fact that they're soy boys and Proud Boys, it's like, okay, wait, you're talking about arrested emotional development, and there's no proud girls, which is also interesting. There's no women in Patriot Front, which is also interesting as well. My point is, though, it's like boys fighting for the favor of Big Daddy government. That's kind of what I see with that. All right, moving on. We have many comments I wanted to get to and other things. Okay, I wanted to kind of get into this. Astronaut Frank Culbertson commenting on watching September the 11th from space. So if you didn't know, there was a witness to September the 11th from space. He was on a craft going 17,000 miles per hour, a couple hundred miles above the Earth. But here's what happened. He said, I zipped around the space station till I found a window that would give me a view of New York. I grabbed the nearest camera. It happened to be a video camera. I was looking south from the window. The smoke seemed to have an odd bloom to it at the base of the column, and it was streaming south of the city. Now again, this is an astronaut in the ISS with a handheld camera looking at the Twin Towers, like Superman, with super zoom-in vision somehow. And he says, I believe we're looking at New York shortly after the collapse of the second tower. And he went on to say about how it looks so bad from up here, imagine how it was on the ground. Then he brings out a trumpet and he played taps. But the thing about it is, while he was watching 9/11 from space, he was listening to the audiobook by Tom Clancy, Sum of All Fears. Tom Clancy's one of these meta-scripters. But I'm just thinking, what are the odds? What are the odds? And Tom Clancy's The Division, I think, is about the split or the crack in everything. And Dark Winter, we're living through his books now. He's one of the major ones. There's a list of names that are worth examining when it comes to looking at who the meta-scripters are. Last night we briefly spoke of Dan Brown and Inferno, about the super virus, and how that connected to Tom Hanks, who during the Inferno of Australia burning was down there fighting climate change when he was quarantined. And in the movie Inferno, he wakes up in quarantine in Italy. He wakes up in a hospital. And interestingly, Italy is where the quarantine lockdowns started. But these mass media tie-ins are anything but eerie coincidences. And these aren't hints dropped by the bad guys that they're about to do something bad. No, this is setting you up to believe something through suggestion. They're creating the neural pathways to make something that's unbelievable, believable later. Priming the pumps. Lean Dion says he filmed that in focus, orbiting at 17,000 miles per hour. Yeah, and one more thing. They don't use handheld cameras on the ISS like that anymore. They don't. And you have to ask yourself why. There's one walkthrough long live stream that it's pretending like they're live, where they have a handheld camera, but generally it's a camera that's mounted. And here's why. If you've ever been to a magic show, it only looks like magic if you are looking at the perspective that the magician wants you to see. It's a carefully cultivated illusion. If you get out of your seat and you wander onto the stage, or you look at it from the back, you're going to see how the trick works. And for this reason, on the ISS, they only have one camera mounted there on the wall so that you don't see the wires. It's that simple. If it wasn't so, they would have iPhones with the cameras on being tossed around the room. You would have views of them moving in ways that, I can only imagine how they would move. Have you ever seen a parabolic flight where people are in the back floating around in zero G conditions because they're free falling? Well, the way that they move and play around in the parabolic flights is what you would expect them to look like and how they would move in space. They don't. In space, they look like they're hanging. It's like a gallows. They're faking it badly. Thinks He's a Penguin 101 says, I read one Tom Clancy book in the 90s and I was all subconsciously programmed and prepared for the beginning of the 21st century. Yep, that's pretty much how it works. It is that pervasive. That's what's so amazing about it. And we've caught up, though. We are cutting edge here. And when I say we're cutting edge, I mean we are up to the minute on a lot of our analysis, where we're not just looking at programming from months ago or years ago. Oftentimes, we're finding real time. And you would look at it as, wow, it's a synchronicity. Fascinating coincidence. Strange how the universe works. It's almost like the universe is manifesting what they put on the TV. And you come up with all these possibilities. How are these events inexplicably reflected in advance in the media? What is the mechanism at work here? Well, Occam's razor, you hear hoof prints out, you hear hoof beats outside your window, you're hearing hooves. And what's your first assumption? You go horse before you assume zebra, like the most likely explanation. So what's more likely? That the universe is actually manifesting what's on the TV because the TV is some kind of reality manifesting device in the control of the elite? Or are they simply the script writers? And I would go with that, because we can point to the actual script writers time and again. And one of the greatest breakdowns of a meta-scripted event, a psychological operation with an actual writer we can attach to it, a director we can attach to it, is the work of Synchromorpheus on Twitter, who broke down the connections between Jordan Peele's movies Get Out and Nope, and the subway drama with Daniel Penny and Jordan Neely. There are so many eerie coincidences there that it's pretty undeniable whose handiwork that particular PSYOP is. And there are many more. Stanley Kubrick has his fingerprints all over many of the major PSYOPs of our day. There's 9/11 predictive programming in Doctor Strangelove, Full Metal Jacket, and 2001: A Space Odyssey. 33 years before 9/11. Jamitra 101 says, NASA Freemason witness in space. Yeah, there's actually a Masonic lodge on the moon. And then Admiral Richard Byrd opened a Masonic lodge number 777 in Antarctica. But what is the moon? Because the moon rocks are all petrified wood. And NASA has a SWAT team. If you want to get swatted for real, not in the fake Steve Bannon, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Tim Pool kind of way, but if you want to get really swatted to where they hold you at gunpoint and they don't care if you relieve yourself in a Denny's parking lot like they did that 75-year-old woman, call NASA and tell them you want to sell them a piece of your moon rock. Because that's what she did. Neil Armstrong gave her husband a piece of a moon rock the size of a grain of rice as a gift. Well, he died, and she needed the money for her grandson's surgery. She attempted to sell this tiny piece of the moon, and NASA said, meet us at Denny's. She goes to Denny's. They show up with a SWAT team. They accost her, they cuff her, she soils herself, and she's tremendously traumatized and embarrassed. And they take her moon rock. They didn't even pay her for it. She sued them. Let me see what her payout was. I believe she sued them. Here we go. NASA detained a 75-year-old for 2 hours over a speck of moon rock. Now, she was trying to sell it. She was 74 at the time. Okay, California woman who tried to sell a moon rock wins. But they set up a sting operation at a Denny's. Like, what are they trying to hide? What are they trying to hide? Is it maybe because if you tested it, you would find out it wasn't an actual moon rock? Are they trying to hide that the moon is made out of wood? Okay, Joan Davis had a moon rock. She had unnecessary prolonged detention. She was having financial problems. 6 armed officers met her. They didn't even pay her for it. She sued them. Okay, we are live. It is August the 3rd, 2023, possibly the evening of the most momentous day of our lives. If tomorrow goes down like the speculation on Twitter would suggest, it'll be bigger than 9/11, bigger than the JFK assassination combined. We shall see. I was just listening to Jurassic Liars talking about tomorrow, which he's not specifically convinced it's going to go down tomorrow, but tomorrow is believed by many to be the date. He's saying it's going to be an August 4th. Maybe not this one. Tomorrow's also Obama's birthday. So what's going to be the outcome? Don't know. I mean, part of JL's prophecy was the stipulation that it would happen in Ohio. Well, tomorrow, Trump's going to be in Montgomery, Alabama. But I don't think that necessarily contradicts the possibility. Nor do I think that Seattle, which I do think is going to get the nuke at some point, I don't think it necessarily has to get it on 6/11. I think that's more of an indicator as to who will be committing the deed. Lots to talk about. Again, phones are open. It is 505-349-0420. I just pulled something off at the last minute. I switched computers and made it possible to not only take calls with equal volume levels, but also we're now streaming live on Paranormal Radio, Radio Net, Radio King, and a few other places. So you can find us all over. Trump pleads not guilty again. Judge warns against the witness tampering. So that was his arraignment today. It was kind of uneventful. I didn't see too much going on, but it's part of the bigger story. Remember, he was arraigned on 4/4, and that was the date that was associated with Martin Luther King, who was assassinated on that day. Martin Luther King having been compared to Moses, and Trump recently was promoted from Jesus to Moses by Jim Caviezel, who plays Jesus. Now, if you're not following all this, basically we're talking about the way that they idolize their politicians and kind of worship them, and Trump has been elevated to this MLK stature in the eyes of his followers. To the left, he's Hitler. Like, it couldn't be more of a contrast. It's like people project, I suppose, or their needs are somehow reflected. The left needs this bad guy. They have Trump derangement syndrome. And the right needs the savior from this deep state. I find it peculiar that he's always saying that they're coming after you. I'm just standing in their way. It's like, well, I'm not committing any crimes. Like, I'm not quite associating his struggle with me. All right, we are joined by Peace Circle 360, Gematria 101, Rocco Calzone, Frank Murr, AJ 206, the HBIC, Peace Circle 360, Clockwork 101. Oh, yeah, and by the way, I'm seeing a lot of you on Twitter, and if you want to follow me on Twitter, it is Real Tim Osman. And I also have the phone number on top and a direct link if you want to jump into Skype. We did some Metascript breakdown this morning. A lot of stuff, fascinating stuff connecting with this Kraken scenario, and it's ongoing. And Godzilla happens to fit in this picture pretty prominently. And what's fascinating about Godzilla is his creation ties into the nuke thing. So we'll talk about Godzilla and how it fits into the bigger picture. We're also going to talk about something I found with Ariana Grande, who is in that movie Don't Look Up, and how that actually has some very specific meaning to this Trump situation, as you shall see. I also want to talk about my Musk-Constantine comparison, because if you remember, I had been saying since 2017 in my article, Musk, the Martian Pope, that Mars represents a return to feudalism, high-tech but space communism, that you're not going into space with your capitalism and your freedom, but that ultimately it represents the transition from free property owners into a slave class where you will own nothing and be happy. And at the time, I had pointed out SpaceX. I didn't know about X.com, but I said SpaceX was emblematic of his role as this Pope of Mars, this New Age papacy, which, if you know about Werner von Braun's book that prophesied that Elon would be the first to colonize Mars, he said that the governmental structure would be that of Rome. So that's what I mean when I say Pope. So you got Pope Elon associated with this, and as far as popes go, I thought, you know what, he is very much like Constantine. And I described him as such because Constantine was there for the transition of the farmers into serfs and uniting the empire under the sign of the cross after he had a vision of a glowing cross. Along with that, you had the aspect of Constantine's role in the consolidation of, you could say, the Bible. So, in other words, like what Musk is doing with X, the everything app, consolidating everything, all of your interactions online, including your finances. The X is just another cross. But what's more, Constantine had this vision from God. Here's a reference from Christianity Today. Constantine had a vision of a cross with light emblazoned and saw the words, "In this sign you shall conquer." This is the reference, because the other day Musk put a giant glowing cross on top of the Twitter office, which they removed because it was too big and too bright. But it was there for a night, and I remarked on it and its symbolism and how it likely relates to the dog star, where in the dog days of summer, Sirius means glowing or lit, and they just changed the Twitter slogan to "Blaze Your Glory." And the Masonic cult refers to the dog star as the blazing star. So what I'm pointing out here is that the X thing is more than just a coincidence. And then if you really look at the symbolism of Christianity, you'll find the dove and the cross are often connected as some of the more ancient symbols. I mean, the cross kind of came late. The dove is an Old Testament thing, but the bird and the cross are things I've been drawing attention to. So here we have Musk uniting the media ecosystem for the purpose of reality control, consolidation, reality monopoly under a glowing cross, under a sign. Just kind of affirms what we had been saying for several years. We talked about the birds. I think and the bears. So if you don't know about the birds and the bears, just reach out to your nearest auto hoaxer to fill you in. All right, phones are open, 505-349-0420, just in case you want to call in. And I have conquered the Skype ringer. Ring Central called me today and they asked me if I wanted to use their services. And I said that no, the only reason I was trying to find someone other than Skype was the ringer situation. But we have that resolved. So if you want to know how that works, I do have a tutorial on how to bypass the ringer. Okay, so let's get into the next topic here. I'd come across this rocket called the Ariane 4. And the reason why I even noticed it is Ariana Grande was in the news. And she was in the news because her boyfriend broke up with her or something like that. And I just did a little cursory glance because I saw this name and I thought, that's interesting, because she was in that movie Don't Look Up. And in the movie Don't Look Up, her character, or rather the singer has a song that's on the soundtrack itself, but the character plays herself. And I thought that's interesting. Just another celebrity who's playing into the big PSYOP. A lot of these celebrities attach themselves to space or to NASA. They like NSYNC. Was it Nickelback talk to ISS? Like they're all backstagers. But I remember watching it, thinking it was just kind of notable that you had this influencer there, and I believe she has PTSD from a PSYOP involving a bomb at a concert that was obviously fake. So she's an insider, is my point. And here's the thing. I'm looking at these reusable rockets with the name Ariane, and here's what I found. This, I think, ties something together here. Now, she has a song called NASA. She has a song called Don't Look Up. Well, the rocket that bears her name, the Ariane 4, was first launched on 6/14/1988. Again, 6/14. Now, Don't Look Up, the movie I'm referencing, the one about the comet that's going to hit the Earth, here's the description. In the dystopian comedy Don't Look Up, a comet poses the ultimate threat to life on Earth if it strikes in 6 months, 14 days. So that's 6/14, June 14. This is what I'm drawing attention to. Leonardo DiCaprio stars in that movie as a way of referencing the Titanic. The Titanic as a metaphor, and because he was the star of the movie, where the Earth now is the Titanic. And instead of an iceberg, it's a comet. But in the same way, it's the rich steering the Earth to certain destruction. Often the Titanic is symbolic of the West or of capitalism. Now, Donald Trump's birthday is 6/14. Now, Alec Baldwin said that playing Trump, again, the twin symbolism here, Alec Baldwin plays Trump. He said it made him wish for a meteor to hit the White House, to kill Trump. Actor Alec Baldwin says he does not want to play Trump again, telling an interviewer that he'd hoped for a meteor. Now, he's at the Rust movie set, Alec Baldwin, and he shoots Helena Hutchins and Joel Souza. Interestingly enough, again, we're talking about the most Trump deranged person on earth, but he shoots Joel Souza, whose birthday is June 14th. So there's another 6/14 connection, dragging into it a meteor, correlating that with destruction of Trump. And, of course, as you'll see, the Titanic. Now, they're shot by a 44. The Rust was supported by the Union Local 44. Trump was arraigned on 4/4, the anniversary of MLK Jr.'s assassination. Fascinating dates, lots more I could go into, but Helena Hutchins, was a Ukrainian cinematographer, and Baldwin is in the Hunt for Red October, which contains predictive programming for the Ukraine-Russia conflict, and additionally, it's about a nuclear sub. Now, this ties in even deeper because the nuclear submarine ties into the recent submarine going down to the Titanic, the location of the Titanic, where James Cameron went 33 times filming Ghosts in the Abyss. And the Abyss is all a reference because he was there on 9/11. It's a reference to Revelation 9/11, the destroyer in the abyss. And he's in a craft called the Challenger. The Challenger, the destroyer, a reference to Oppenheimer, the destroyer of worlds, nuclear submarine. See the connection here? And there are many overlapping things, like even the crab, the crab symbol. We insert Cancer on the day the submarine blows up. The crab symbol is the 6/9. And the crab also symbolizes this kraken. In fact, the kraken was originally big crab. And the words have an etymology that I think is derived from the same place. But you'll see the symbolism here as we get into the conversation about Godzilla. Godzilla's 69th, there's your Cancer crab kraken connection. His 69th anniversary, or their 69th anniversary is on 11/3. That date having tremendous significance to the Kraken narrative in general. It's the 33rd in the franchise, and it's the 37th. No, it's the 37th in the franchise, 33rd by this particular director. The numbers speak for themselves. In King Kong vs. Godzilla 2020, Godzilla is stored at level 33. 33 has to do with ascension, so we're talking about the Kraken rising. And all of this does connect, I believe, to the Kraken destroying the West symbolized by the Titanic. I mentioned James Cameron. Well, his movie, The Titanic, featured predictive programming for the Twin Towers sinking as the Titanic split in two, went vertical, complete with jumpers. So there's a strong connection here again between the sinking of the Titanic, an iceberg, a comet hitting the Earth, and Trump being strongly correlated with the Twin Towers and the West itself. Like he's the face of it as it goes down. And brought into the picture here, of course, is the nuke. We've been talking about the nukes, and it is the nuclear tests that created Godzilla, who is going to come back and destroy us. That's kind of the story here. There's definitely a lot more. This is a fascinating just piece of the puzzle. The Batman ending monologue, quote, Wednesday, November 6th, the city is underwater. The National Guard is coming. Martial law is in effect. See 11/6, upside down 9/11 or 6/11. You'll see all these numbers correlate to the same thing. In the Batman movie, it was the Riddler sending his radicals to destroy the dam, cracking the dam to flood the poles. That's why Gotham was underwater. So the Kraken is a metaphor for whatever it is that destroys everything. And I believe that the nuclear detonation is what sets it off, probably from the sea. Oppenheimer, the destroyer in the abyss, that mention brings up the fact that the movie, the IMAX, was 11 miles long, weighed 600 pounds. Another very prominent 11/6. Continuing, let me catch up on the comments and then we'll go through my notes. If you want to follow my notes, go to minds.com/Infinite Plane Society. Brogetta says the Birds and the Bears should be a Chief Crow song. Yeah, let me tell you about the Birds and the Bears. Fakeable, yes. CGI, animatronic, yes, obviously. Fakeable at scale to the point where you could replace populations? No, not at all. And just because you can fake it in a microcosm doesn't mean you can stereotype it and say they're all fake. Oh, this bear's fake, they're all fake. That bear looks human, all bears are humans in bear suits. See, there's a flaw in the logic here, and I'm very glad that Owen Benjamin is doubling down on fake pandas because it's exposing the philosophical crisis that I've been talking about. The issue is this. People know it's ludicrous, but they don't know why it's ludicrous. They just know it is, and the consensus knows it is. So they can laugh, but their laughter is kind of ironic because it's laughable that they don't actually have the cognitive framework to say that's obviously BS. That's not in the realm of possibility. I need more context. I need to suspend judgment. No, it doesn't cross their minds. They're like, I saw it on a TikTok. It's real. That's why I call it the TikTokification of the mass mind, where now facts are taken out of context. Context is everything. That's why you have to have a period of discovery. And what I'm saying is that the habit here, because we're inundated with 48 hours of news a day, the habit is to rush to judgment. And to make it easier, you just trust certain sources. So every day you get your daily deluge download of fake news that you just believe because you trust them. What choice do you have? Well, your choice is believe they're not telling you everything, or put on your BS detectors, which you don't have to put anything on. You just have to remove the screen from your frame of reference as a primary source. It's subtractive. The conspiracy theorists in general are very additive. They just add to the premise set by the world stage media. And we talk about this in Autohoaxology 101. It's all about your frame of reference. We're here to cure mind aids. Infinite Plane Radio is mind war inoculation, and we have a cure for it. You thought it's uncurable? No. If you have mind aids, if you have no mental immune system, if you just believe what you see because you don't know why you shouldn't, yes, we can cure that. Chris says, when will World War III start? It started on 3/11/2020. World War III isn't one nation versus another. It's the elite, it's the cabal, it's the capstone versus the individual. And the elite is also embodied in all of the people who go along with the programming and are the de facto enforcers. So you didn't have UN troops, you didn't have any kind of really any kind of police pushing you into your homes for the quarantine. It was just your neighbors giving you dirty looks that got you to conform. But the wars against the individual, they said you have to take off your face, efface yourself. It's selfish to have one. A little self-sacrifice. It was pushing collectivism. It was denying the validity of the individual perspective. Everything about that tells us that that's the basis for the World War III. It's the war on the individual, the war on individualism. Elephant Tusk says it started on 9/11. It's the war against the individual. Yeah, you're right. Although this is the thing, I think we could say that, but I'm thinking 3/11 because there's a number of things predictive programming wise. For example, look at Call of Duty. Their logo has the WW, as you'll see. I'll put it up on the screen. Just one example. A lot of the World War III predictive programming seemed to indicate 3/11. And this was very common. This was throughout many of the movies at the time. I mean, does it matter what we call it? Because ultimately what we're talking about is the perpetual war. What we're talking about is the mechanism of the world stage itself. I mean, it's not meant to be something that's solved at some point in the future. They don't want everybody vaxxed. They want half the population. They need the contention. Okay, so if you're looking at the screen, it says World War III. And if you look at the W, there's a distinct 11 built into it. The guy's got the mask. There's a lot of this stuff leading up to the pandemic in many games. So I actually think that the mask symbolizes the elimination of individuality, shutting your mouth to not spread mind viruses, shutting your mouth to not spread COVID, relinquishing your individual face so you can be part of the hive mind, 6 feet apart from everybody. So, in other words, I kind of think that we're in it, to answer your question. It already started. And in related news, is the New World Order coming, some one world order religion? Good news. It's already here. It's not coming. It's good and it's bad news. It means they already won. But it's not your fault. They won before you got here. And it's just in the process of updating. Now, look at Neo. Neo, new. Neo in the Matrix has a passport, expires 9/11. His birth date's 3/11. So I think the new age, the death of the old age, was probably symbolized by 9/11, and the birth of the new age, 3/11. Chris asks, will the internet be shut down for a select period of time? We were talking about this today, about EMPs. I think what they're going to do is electromagnetic pulse, definitely some levels of, if not total shutdown, temporary freezing, for example, like what we saw after Christ Church, after the mosque shootings, they shut down certain sites. In other words, quarantining mind viruses. But I think what they may do in conjunction with the EMPs are cyber attacks. And remember the thing about Cyber Polygon? Yeah, Portal Complex mentions it. They had this big plan for Cyber Polygon. Well, before it could happen, they canceled it, but on the day it was scheduled, you had all kinds of cyber attack-like shutdowns across Canada. They went live with the drill. But they can't turn off the internet indefinitely without destroying their programming. But what they can do is they can get the public through problem, reaction, solution. They can coerce the public into accepting the premise that, you know what, there's too much mail, mis, and disinformation. We need to go ahead and shut things down. After 9/11, it was all about weapons of mass destruction. Now, it's about mail, mis, and disinformation. It's like weapons of mass destruction, WMD, and now it's mal, dis, and mis, MDM. But it's the same premise. It's like, what I say is as bad as a dirty bomb from their perspective. You know, the whole thing about sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. No, memes are considered to be lethal at this point. Toxic misinformation, radioactive waste. Yeah, Lane Dion mentions the Westworld logo. Oh, there's a few. Let me go ahead and bring up a couple others, because the Westworld logo is definitely a big one. There was this show called 3%, which it's on Netflix. And again, Netflix co-founder original CEO, is the great nephew of Edward Bernays, propaganda, also related to Sigmund Freud. So here's a show called 3%, and it's about dystopian future, usual stuff that you'd expect. But here's what's interesting about this. It's about how 3% of the population gets sterilized in order to live in this better place that's not a slum. But it's just transhumanism. But their logo, the 3%, if you turn your head 90 degrees, you'll see that the 3 actually contains the Twin Towers. And then from the top, it actually looks like the top view of the Twin Towers. Why would they do this? 9/11 combined with 3/11 encoded in a movie. This is typical. This is typical for their types of messaging. Westworld Season 3 has what looks to be an android impaled on a Vax, but actually it's a building in the background. But these are intentional resemblances. Westworld, of course, was replete with the types of symbolism that we're talking about here. Free will is not free. Again, the movie Westworld, this premiere was on 3/15. And again, the symbolism here, free will is not free. They're about to take away your free will, coercing you into the pokey. And here you have this person seemingly impaled. And we're talking about Westworld. The West is what we've been discussing here in the bigger picture. The sinking of the Titanic, the build up towards some kind of destruction of Seattle. This is all about the West, the fall of the West. And we say West, we mean our concepts of individualism, private property, freedom, all of the things that the left and the commies, the greenies are against, pretty much. Infinite Plane Trotters joined us. Thank you for joining. Go ahead and share the stream. There's about 65 people here, and phones are open if you want to test them out. I'm pretty sure it's going to go flawless tonight. Now, if you look at the screen, we had this conversation in Discord, and this is a good reason to go into our Discord server. So we're talking about Ariana Grande, and she's in the movie that has this 614 code about the comet hitting the Earth because the rich, the capitalists, their greed steers us into it. Just a Titanic told all over again, but she's in it. But the rockets are named after a mythological character called, it's not Ariande, but it's close. It's Ariadne, but same, just one letter off. And this character was very depressed. According to Plutarch, she hanged herself after being abandoned by Theseus. I think she's the one that lets people out of the labyrinth. But I'm just pointing it out here. Ariana Grande headline here. Depression and anxiety has been at an all-time high. Ariana cancels meet and greet due to depression. Ariana opens up about mental health in a new BBC music documentary and says her anxiety makes her feel guilty. Just noting that this historic character that rocket is named after has some similar characteristics. May or may not mean anything. Again, we were talking about Godzilla, created by the Nuke. New one opens up on 11/3, 69th anniversary. Within the context of the Japanese films, Godzilla's exact origins vary, but it's generally depicted as an enormous, violent, prehistoric sea monster awakened and empowered by nuclear radiation. More. The new one's called Godzilla -1, upcoming film. It is the 37th in the Godzilla franchise, and it is Toho Studios' 33rd. So you have a 33, 37, which is again another reference to the same stuff we've been talking about. Crab, Kraken, L. And here's a shot from Godzilla vs. King Kong, sub-level 33. Again, Underground Lab is located at level 33. And this is all very much, I think, symbolic of the rising of Leviathan, the rising of the beast from the abyss. It has some other meanings as well, I believe, when you look at the King Kong Godzilla stuff. But now here's some interesting Kubrickology. The plot of Kubrick's black comedy masterpiece, Dr. Strangelove, revolves around a jet airplane on a rogue low-level attack mission. If you recall, Dr. Strangelove is about the bomb. So here is a 9/11 tie-in, low-level attack, Pentagon, and a tie-in, of course, to the nuke thing. And the movie came out on the day JFK was assassinated. I've been finding some fascinating connections between Kubrick, the Kennedys, and the nuclear age and the space age. Major Kong is the commander of the bomber. His name is a reference to King Kong. It's remarked here on the site that I found that King Kong is actually set on the Twin Towers on the 1976 version. Just endless predictive programming. That's why I pay attention to what's going on here with Trump and this seeming prediction for an incoming Kennedy-like head wound. And by the way, the Kennedy head wound, 3 shots, head, neck, chest, mirrors the 3 wounds of Hiram Abiff. It's just totally richly scripted. Now, we had this conversation about blackouts and is it possible? And I've been saying this because if they're going to fake an EMP, all you really need are 5,000 crisis actors. That's all you need. A bunch of liars. And all the big corporations and hospitals playing along in the area. And so some will say, well, you couldn't possibly fake an EMP. It wouldn't be possible to turn off everybody's devices. And I want to say to that, you can't bring down a skyscraper with jet fuel. In other words, the rules of reality are suspended when we talk about these things, when we talk about PSYOP scenarios. Now, here's some interesting material. There's this series from PBS called, I think it's called War Stories, but episode 113 was called The Bombing of Seattle. I don't know if any of you have seen The Bombing of Seattle. I used to reference it frequently before they scrubbed it, probably because I was linking to it. But check this out. This show, or this movie called The Bombing of Seattle, was about a drill conducted at Husky Stadium. This drill involved everything you'd expect. Seattle's under attack. Anyway, Husky Stadium is the place where the wave originated. The wave that people do in stadiums where one person stands up and waves and other people do and it becomes a big wave thing. It originated there. Now, here's why it's significant. Last year, at this time, I had remarked, hey, look at this. Amazon moved 1,800 employees away from downtown Seattle. They said it was a crime wave. So a crime wave caused Amazon to relocate 1,800 employees from downtown, away from, Chazistan. And I thought, maybe they're making the way for this fake nuke that's going to come. Shortly after this, there were a number of headlines last July and August about how if Washington state is hit by a tsunami, of which it's at high risk, they could reach Seattle with 42-foot waves. CNN simulation shows tsunami waves as high as 42 feet. Seattle earthquakes could produce 42-foot tsunamis. Washington, high risk, 42-foot waves. Now, crime waves cause them to relocate the employees. Tsunami waves, the such that would be created by some kind of submarine-borne nuke. And then add on to that this bombing of Seattle drill from decades ago took place at the place where the wave originated. Just some interesting connections and correlations I came across. Baja Pickleball says, anyone catch the breakdown of Cloned Tyrone by Mind Unveiled? I have not. I would like to see a link because I watched it and I didn't want to give any spoilers. Lots of Kubrick references. It's got some interesting elements right out of Truman Show, Westworld, Blade Runner. I mean, there's a lot in that movie. It's pretty dense, but the interesting thing to me is Jamie Foxx and the clone rumors, and the movie's about cloning, but moreover, his connection to the Black Lives Matter martyr cult and Tyrone being cloned correlating with the resurrection of Hiram of Tyre and Tyre Nichols and all these martyrs in general as they connect to this reoccurring Black Christ archetype we've been presented with. And Jamie Foxx is just the latest. It was reported that he died on the movie set and was resurrected. Okay, let's see here. I'm going through your comments. Baja says maybe they're creating people, not cloning. Could be an underground lab, Cabbage Patch Kids. Yeah, maybe they transported a lot of children to the underground Mars bases decades ago. So we have full grown, full blown Martians breeding like crazy. You know that show West no no Utopia we talked about Utopia, the American version, how it predicted 2020. It showed crisis actors. It pretty much laid bare the truth, which is why they pulled it. Well, one of the elements to it, this Utopia thing, Utopia refers to the place where the crisis actors lived. That the crisis actors that came in and performed for the camera, the ones that took the vax and showed it was safe, yeah, they were from this separate society. Portal Complex says, we'll never rest until we nuke the moon. Doesn't nuke the moon have some kind of, the operation have some kind of 119 symbolism attached to it? And by the way, the movie Moonfall was directed by Roland Emmerich, who did Independence Day. Now, Independence Day, more than any other movie, prepared us, predictive programming wise, for the falling towers and for the alien invasion. The president saves us. Yeah, that movie was meant to set the stage. And Roland Emmerich getting behind Moonfall, not a coincidence at all. Because the next major PSYOP isn't the moon falling, but I think it might have to do with space wars and the space infrastructure. So Project A119, fascinating when you get to the numbers here. Study of lunar research flights was a top secret plan developed in 1958 by the Air Force to detonate a nuclear bomb on the moon. Okay. Just a big, kind of a weird flex. But that'll show those Russians. We says, so nukes are real then? Question mark. I don't believe they are, but it doesn't matter. They are as real as any superstition in the minds of the believers. Now, bombs are real, nukes are fake, fireworks are real, obviously, and you can dress it up. You can put fireworks on the bottom of a blimp and send the blimp straight up and say it's a rocket going to Mars, and people will believe it. Lean Dion says, your nuke mind-blown connections are great. Yeah, let me bring this up. We watched Newsbenders as a group recently. And in Newsbenders, they said they took over the media with Hiroshima. And what that gets me thinking here is that's when they blew up objectivity and they obliterated the mass mind's connection to objective reality. Hey, what's up, caller?
Buenos dias, or buenos noches, mi hermano.
Yeah, likewise. We're on the evening of
Yeah,
whatever's going to
it's
happen.
2:33.
Oh, yeah, awesome. Good to hear from you.
Yeah, I'm testing the line.
Okay, so far, so good. We'll see what everyone here thinks. Now,
Yeah, you can hear me pretty good.
you sound good on my end. It's just a matter of how do they
Yeah,
hear it.
I got crappy Bluetooth on, so there you go.
Cool. Well, great to hear from you, and I'm glad the phones are back on. This is, to me, the major thing of this program.
Yeah, I like when you catch traction, man.
Yeah, things are getting better all around. Apparently, the audio is good according to the chat.
Yeah.
What?
Um, yeah, I just wanted to call in and test the line,
Awesome. Well,
because
hey, uh,
it's great when you catch traction.
yeah,
I
absolutely.
just got home from work from
Oh, well, hey, call in anytime for
on the
sure.
on the East Coast.
Is this a good time frame for
I
you,
can
by the
call
way?
back. That's what I'm saying.
I see.
Yeah, it's pretty good because I'm on the way home from work right
Okay. Okay, because I'm trying to determine the
now.
best particular, time slots for getting the
Well,
most
I can
callers.
call back. I can call back in like 20 minutes. I just got home.
Okay, well, definitely, if I'm still on, call back. I have some other things to do this evening, but you did perfectly help me test out the whole phone system, so thank you for that.
You're welcome, brother.
All right.
Thanks for keeping up to work.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I have endless.
I got you on Patreon
Oh yeah, I want to say thanks for that, by the way. I saw that you had joined me there, and I'm
Yeah.
gonna send out
I
a
was
new.
like, I was like a Luddite, and I was like, Patreon. What the hell is that? But then I just went on there and did it.
Yeah, I understand being a Luddite. There's so many options, but it's
But I got another guys I listen to on there too. So doing them, I did it. You know, they're pretty good if you want to know who they are.
yeah. Let me know by all means. I'm all about
Not
cross.
not not that I don't want to promote other people. You know what I mean? But they're interesting. It's Russians with attitude. They you get a different perspective of what's going on over there, and it's cultural too. You get all cultural stuff from over there.
Okay, took note of that. I took note,
They
and
do like they post stuff like they post like historical podcasts about like the czars and then they do current events right now over there, and they have guests and stuff. Russians are attitude.
awesome, awesome. Well, definitely feel free to post links as well, to videos as well. I'm trying to
I know how to
enlarge.
do that, bro.
Well,
I'm a
that's
luddite.
yeah. I get it. Look, I was a late adopter to cell phones.
Dude, I got you to laugh, bro.
No, I was a late adopter to phones. I was like the last person on earth that was ever going to be contacted by anybody. And now it's like I'm surrounded by monitors and phones and devices all the time. Like, how did I get here?
Yeah, well, I'm glad you are, bro. You do a good job.
Yeah, well, we have a lot of eyes and ears paying attention, and we're really focused like a laser these days. And nobody takes
Yeah, I'm gonna
apart.
buy some more paintings too. I like your paintings, bro.
Oh, cool. I've been doing a lot more of them, and you'll see them on the store. Um, I've been painting quite a lot,
Yeah,
and
kind of moved around a little bit too, though, right?
yeah, everything kind of
Because I
moved
was
around.
getting them on that one. What was that first one I was getting them on?
Ko-fi.
Yeah, Coalfire. Are they still up there?
I have some there, but I'm moving to eBay because it's
Yeah,
where I'm selling all the books as well.
I gotta
TimOsmond.art.
figure out.
Well, hey, I got another
That'd
call
be
coming in, so have a great evening.
yeah. Take it, brother. Take it. We're not asking.
Hey, what's up, caller?
Oh, hey, this is Baja Pickleball. Can you hear me?
Yes, I saw some of your comments in chat. Any thoughts about, I guess, the cloning you were talking about?
Yeah, so I think that could be a thing. I mean, it's definitely historically you find it in pop culture all over, and um, I don't know. I think the cloning might be a little bit of misdirection. But are you even familiar with the channel Mind Unveiled? I know.
I've seen some of their videos here and there as people post them.
Okay, because he really got on a he actually did a 10-hour video pretty much on the homunculus. Are you familiar with that? The history of that?
I am somewhat familiar with the homunculus, which is sort of like in the same area as the golem or even AI in a modern version. But um, the homunculus topics is interesting to me. You're talking about like a synthetic person long before science fiction picked this up.
Yeah. So is it possible they've got a underground operation of sort of Cabbage Patch homunculuses?
Now, how do these work? Like, are they just shells and they have to have some kind of consciousness imbued into them through some kind of transmigration of souls, some kind of download? I mean, how are they supposedly created, or are they grown in a vat and just have their own minds?
Yeah, they're grown. I mean, a lot of times the the evidence that's there, I think, suggests from pictures, and some of them look pretty legit, but um, asexual reproduction through just the elements, whether it's the ether and maybe a little bit of water, and who knows? But there's, I mean, I think they were doing it. I think the Odd Fellows and the Orphan Trains and a lot of the pieces to the puzzle that he's put together suggest that they were getting mass amounts of children primarily to repopulate cities and states and all different places all over the world.
Now, this orphan train phenomenon is fascinating to me. There's a Netflix show called The 100 where it's a space arc, and 100 youth are sent down to repopulate the world.
Oh wow. Okay, we might have to watch that one. What's it called again?
The 100. Look, it's about a space
Okay.
arc. It's about a space arc, and get this: season 1, episode 13. So 113, the space station falls. Like the 113 code with disasters is in all of these movies, but yeah, it's about replacement populations where it's just a bunch of young people dropped off. And I know that's a big theme within the mud flood theory, but that's to me kind of like, I don't know, it kind of sounds like this Mars based thing too. You know, the kidnapped children sent to Mars. I mean, there might be a conquering Martian army beneath our feet, waiting for Musk to give them orders to turn Earth into Mars.
Okay. Now, yeah, I mean that's very possible. One thing I do want to mention to you because I'm not sure if you're familiar, but he did a lot of digging into these theaters, and apparently, have you heard of the ISIS theater? ISIS.
No, where is it?
Okay, so you're gonna really like this because you're into ISIS big time. I didn't even know how deep it was until I started listening to you. But he has figured out that the very first theaters all throughout the United States were called ISIS theaters, and they were all over in small towns, big towns, everywhere. And it's been hidden, and the evidence has just really been swept under the rug. Where I mean, he's got a few crumbs here and then. There's pictures, and he's got enough evidence, but it's shocking how they really tried to hide that fact. So all these theaters were called ISIS theaters, and his conclusion is basically, okay, so that was kind of like the brainwashing 101. Like that was the main hub. Like all these homunculus or orphans, all these Cabbage Patch Kids, whatever you want to call them, they were sort of brainwashed and programmed by all of these theaters that were all over the country.
No, I have not heard about this, but it's a fascinating topic. The use of theater and mind control. I mean, if you really get down to it, the ritual dramas we see, the stage events, are theatrical flash mob like productions. And the initiatory societies, the Masonic religion, if you look at the degrees, it's nothing more than you're sitting in a room watching a staged theatrical production with multiple layers of meaning that it might take you years to unravel. Sort of like what we do with the movies. We're recognizing that there's an esoteric element, but it's basically theater is used to impart a lot of the programming.
Yeah, totally. You know how many connections that you made and coincidences that you linked between Justin Bieber and The Weeknd?
Way too many.
Yeah. So I was wondering if you could do the same thing with Mac Miller and the new guy who his new role who died.
Yeah, I was actually looking at that. Mac Miller is the guy who died after what he's 26 years old, drugs, but his death was replete with the usual Illuminati symbolism, etc. But there's this show called Euphoria where an actor who looks just like him is asked by people, "Hey, will you do a biopic on Mac Miller?" He says no, but then he dies just like Mac Miller, looking like Mac Miller at approximately the same age. And some people are thinking, could this be Mac Miller, like a second identity? I mean, that's within the realm of possibility, but I have to do some digging.
Okay, so you're not firm on that one, but you're pretty confident about The Weeknd and Justin Bieber being the same person, right?
Well, see, that's a twisted, strange thing to say when you tell people. But what we're talking about here is Look, it just gets so strange. Like the weekend with his face bandages, the masks, the Super Bowl performance where he's got a bunch of clones of himself. All this type of stuff goes into the why behind it all. But are we looking at some kind of dual character on the world stage? Um, it's like it's within the realm of possibility, and I think Super Recognizer, a YouTube channel, did a lot of research on this one, and he found conflicting dates where there's no way because they're both performing on the same night. But this is where
Hmm.
the clones come in, all the clones of himself that you saw in the Super Bowl. Justin Bieber did the same thing on SNL, clones of himself. He's suggesting that maybe what we're saying are celebrities that are deep fakes, that they exist in their real form, but that they can be replicated almost endlessly, like Black Mirror stuff, but instead of digital, using synthetic special effects.
Uh, like a holograph.
Well, I mean, like a literal synthetic skin mask, as opposed to what we see now with.
Or in a body. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, that's definitely. I think that's the evidence is plentiful on all over. I've seen. Yeah, that's. I think that's easy to do with the synthetics.
Well, when you get
And you think
deeper,
the rock?
for people who think this is just something you can dismiss, you have to look at the overlaps, like Justin Bieber dating the same girls as The Weeknd, and there's a point where there are questions: is Haley Bieber also this other actress? I believe the name is Bella Hadid, who dated The Weeknd. So is she also deep faking, where she also plays a brunette with darker eyes, where it's like, and you see them in moving, So in other words, are they both deep fakers playing dual roles? So we kind of delved into this a couple of years ago, and the more we talked about masks, the more we seem to be flooded with disinformation. And then 2020 happens, and everything is about the masks all of a sudden, and it drowned out all of our conversations. It became almost like, I don't know, it almost felt like we were onto something, and then it got buried.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you keep coming back though. How's the new headquarters feeling?
The new headquarters are perfect. It's ideal. We have the space. We have a conference room. It's conveniently located, and I've already got tons of shelving. We have hardware updates going on right now, and I'm just basically 1 or 2 steps away from having the 24/7 stream back on, and it's a permanent thing. And having a headquarters, having a physical location has many advantages. It'll be a lot more productive going forward. We've turned the printing side of this thing back on, and the IPS does have a tabloid newspaper that's going back into print along with the back issues later this month.
Yeah, I'm excited about that, but I'm curious to know if you'll be able to mail the print version to Mexico.
Here's my plan for that, because I'm using eBay for distribution, so it will be possible. Because what eBay does is they have a great international distribution um, channels already set up, and they bill me for the shipping out of what I already have in my account there. In other words, I don't have to pay out of pocket. I can ship it the day it's ordered internationally. That's why I'm choosing eBay. It solves that problem.
Okay, sounds good, man. Well, you have a good night.
Yeah, hey, appreciate the call very much, and call back anytime.
Thanks.
Okay, so we have covered a lot of topics so far. Thanks again to the callers for helping us test this out. We were just talking about the nuking of the moon and A119. Now, I was talking about 9/11, James Cameron, Revelation 9/11, the abyss, the destroyer in the abyss. Well, 119 is kind of a reverse 9/11. It's notable that one refers to the abyss below, the ocean, and the other refers to the abyss above, space. And Revelation, you think the end of the book, Genesis, the beginning. Genesis 119 is when the Tower of Babel falls. So 119, 9/11, both correlate to the Titanic or the Tower of Babel or the West, all these different ways that they reference the same thing. Again, looking at the image of Westworld on the screen with the android impaled on the building. So much predictive programming and like basically setting the theme for the zeitgeist. A lot of it is just really setting your frame of reference, programming you with with suggestions, boring out the neural pathways. Now, as far as clones go, I think it's a fascinating topic, but for the most part, I kind of think it's always been put out there in a way to give cover as a guardrail, as a red herring to anybody noticing a lot of the deep fake stuff, which is just high tech masks. But the topic of the homunculus is worth considering because we're approaching the point where it's a brave new world. People are going to be born out of, vats or implantable wombs. I mean, if that's not already happening, I mean, look at Kyle Rittenhouse and look at Greta Thunberg. The antipodes of the political parties is like their most extreme version of their party. So you've got Kyle, far right, gun toting, MAGA, front row seat at a Trump rally stopping BLM, which is the Marxist communist revolutionaries. And you've got Greta, statist, voice of the big government great reset. Take the guns, take the property, the complete opposite. Toxic masculinity and Greta being basically, weaponized Karenism. I mean, how dare you? You have to change for my comfort. The whole thing is just the two most annoying people in the world from the other side's perspectives. They're both born January 3rd, 2003. Same birthday. So I can imagine some kind of a vat that they opened up and they pulled them both out and they handed one to one set of parents, the other to the other, and they're like, okay. And they're groomed, they're put into their positions, and then we have to deal with them. Infinite Plane Trotter says, false dichotomy scripted. Absolutely. And speaking of birthdays, tomorrow is Barack Obama's birthday. And it may or may not be the day, but there are many things suggesting that it will be the day that there is some kind of spectacle involving Donald Trump. And we've talked about this before extensively. I want to draw attention to last year, 7/4, the shooting at the... Apologize for that. I failed to mute the Skype. Hey, what's up, caller?
Okay, so I'm sort of late to the party tonight, but I know the headline is about Trump and 8/4. So my question is, I remember Jurassic Liars last year said there's a 1,000,000% chance it was going to happen this year, and if it didn't happen, he would shut up forever. Is that still the case? Do you know?
This year, he says he doesn't think it's going to happen. He's thinking next year. So is he hedging his bets?
Okay.
I don't know. But look, there's like 50 people on Twitter that are pushing this, and they're building up all kinds of reasons. And so what I'm saying is if it doesn't happen tomorrow, they're pretty much all invalidated. Like there's a point where you have to just say, okay, our methodology is off. Something's wrong. So if it doesn't happen tomorrow, that's it for most of them who aren't even citing him as a source.
Well, hey, this is Stranger Days, so I've been around a while, and I've been hearing it for a few years now. So for me, it's like the rapture. If it don't happen tomorrow, then count me out for the future. I'm not going to pay any more attention. But I think it's a good chance. I'd say 10% chance that maybe something will happen tomorrow. I really think that I know it looks pretty. It's some wild crap that Trump's going through. All this show that's happening with his indictments and everything. It's a hell of a show, I will say. But now let me ask you this: didn't JL say that his head wound would happen in Ohio?
Yes, and that's why he's not certain about it being this year, because Trump's going to be in Montgomery, Alabama. But
Right.
he's going to be at the Renaissance Hotel. And this Renaissance rebirth, like there is some scripting there that people are pointing at. But I'm just saying, I'm with you. If it doesn't happen tomorrow, it's becoming a cult, a prophecy cult, which is fun, but it's like it is what it is. You know, it's not a predictive model. But predictive programming is a predictive model. So I'm like, yeah, he's going to get it. Just don't know the date.
It's hard to pick dates on anything like this, and like I said, it might as well be the rapture, you know. So, but hey, we'll see tomorrow. I'll tune in and see what happens, and you know, it may be a hell of a show, but it may just be a dud.
Hey,
I think it's gonna be a dud.
I appreciate your skepticism. It's very important. All right, have a great night.
Yeah, you too. Bye bye.
Apologize for that ringer. Again, that's why you have to overcome it. That probably woke a lot of you up. Salty Siren says the eclipse. Remember, you have to flip the numbers like on 311 maybe. So 4-8. Interesting. Well, look, if it happens tomorrow, it's going to be chaos, obviously, and change everything. That's why it's worth talking about. If it doesn't happen tomorrow, we're going to have to look at the mechanism by which people arrived at an erroneous conclusion and then reverse engineer that. Like, for example, are they cherry picking? Are they ignoring a lot of stuff until they find something that fits? Are they omitting things that contradict, etc.? But I don't think we can attach a date necessarily. I think we can look at the copious amounts of predictive programming and ask ourselves, when has something that has been, like, in other words, when have we seen an area of predictive programming that didn't have a real world correlation? I mean, UFO invasions, that's like pretty much the only thing we're waiting for. Red 5 says, if someone gets shot in the head and comes back, I'll call cloning. Right. Well, they think he's a twin. Many think that he's a twin. I don't know if that means one of them takes a hit. Look, I think they would use a dummy. I don't know why they would even get their... Look what they did with... Okay, last year, after the Guidestones blew up, you had that incident where Abe, Shinzo Abe, the former prime minister of Japan, was shot and he was Trump's friend. That was a squib. They hardly even tried. Hey, what's up, caller?
Hey, Tim.
Hey.
Yeah, I was calling right when that guy was calling.
Oh, yeah, I got that. I saw your number up there.
I thought maybe you weren't picking up because they sound like I'm drunk all the time.
Oh, no, I didn't. It didn't even cross my mind. Are you drinking?
Yeah, because I listen after.
Mm.
And I'm like, man, that guy sounds like an idiot.
No, I never get that. I never get that at all.
No, I know. But I've seen people in the chat say like, this guy's drunk or whatever. Usually by the time I get home, I mean, I'm here for a while. I tend to be a little bit, But anyways, they left you a funny message. But so I said this heat thing because I had a little Easter egg I remember pop up that you'd probably be interested in. This Arizona, Texas, California, and they're having all the heat wave shit. They were showing it on the local news and talking about it because that's one of their agendas. They want everybody to think the climate is falling from the sky. So they kept showing the same clip a lot of times of this digital billboard in Arizona somewhere, probably in Phoenix or something by some arena, because it looked like maybe there's an arena in the background. And it was the same clip, amongst other clips, like pictures, but I noticed, that's what I do, man, I noticed shit. I would have been a good recon officer. 113 degrees, kept showing it for a couple weeks. It was only they took that picture one day. They didn't take the same picture every day. They kept showing the picture, 113 degrees.
Yep. Okay, well,
I don't know.
No, look, I don't believe in coincidences. And at this point, if it's there and you're noticing it, it's because you're meant to notice it. That's the way that this works. I look at the news as often a bad movie, but as a movie by at least a skilled enough director to where they're not putting extraneous material in there. It's all programming. And I don't think it needs you to pay attention for it to work. I think you're programmed if you're just a passive viewer. If you're not actively viewing, I think it still just essentially downloads
What
into
if
your
you're
subconscious.
what if you're just watching for Easter eggs?
That's different. See, if you're watching actively, it's not getting the auto download. You actually have your own filtration. So this is why I consider what we do to be more of an active watching and seeing versus passive absorbing. I do think that makes a difference.
Yeah, because you're into the 113, right?
Oh yes,
You
100%.
you brought that up.
Oh yeah, look, the number 113,
It's like
the,
a soft 33.
it is, and like 9/11, it is one of these numbers that's very well represented among all of the various PSYOPs. 113 is huge in all the Pixar predictive programming, and it all ties into the same general
Yeah,
themes.
yeah. Signs and symbols are a language for the elite to communicate without us really knowing what's going on. Not us, but everybody else.
Yes, absolutely.
I keep trying to tell people that, but they just don't can't wrap their head around it.
You know what? It's because it's a form of visual illiteracy and symbol illiteracy that the elite rely on.
Yeah, you say that. I like that saying.
Yeah, look, it's a problem, I think,
Sure.
that a lot of people just believe what they see on the screen and they don't recognize that they are opening themselves up as far as they're making themselves vulnerable to manipulation. And I think it's so incomprehensible to most people.
Yeah. I
It,
mean, they they I think they will be good if they people have to be interested in something to kind of embrace it. And
yes.
I was personally interested in the esoteric. Initially, I couldn't really tell you why, except for maybe the kind of person I am, right? My my astrological lineup and stuff like that. Um, but I was interested, I embraced it, and it took off like a rocket. And I'm still a novice, but you look at any kind of media marketing stuff, it's all right there.
Oh yeah, absolutely. In fact, I was more interested in the
Yeah.
esoteric and in the symbolism. I was interested in all this stuff before I took any active interest in the news media. And when I took interest in the news media, I thought, why am I noticing this stuff over here? Like I thought these are two separate worlds. Then I find out that no, in fact, everything that I studied that would fall into the category of New Age, occult, mysticism, alchemy, synchronicity, all this stuff actually is right there present in the mainstream news and mainstream entertainment, but it's occulted, it's esoteric.
Yeah, yeah.
The Super Bowl is what
Yo,
wakes a lot of people up. A lot of people are suddenly made aware, okay, there's something weird going on when they see the Super Bowl, but they don't have a broader context. But if they see some kind of obvious occult ritual stuff, they notice it, but then they kind of forget about it. Like that Sam Smith guy and the devil costumes, people are like, wow, it's just outright Satanism on TV. And then the next day they're on to something else.
well, it's desensitizing them to the ritual and the protocol of the ritual, because it's during like what is it during like Samhain or something, or not Samhain, but during one of the pagan times to do a ritual, isn't it? The Super Bowl.
Oh yeah, Super Bowl would be Candlemas or In Bulk.
Yeah.
They
So
always
people,
coincide.
and like you said about New Year's,
Oh yeah, New
right?
Year's is a big one. New Year's is the worship of the dog star that's about to fall starting at midnight. And everyone's counting down the ball drop. Well, you're actually basically praying to the god star of the elite, the blazing star as they call it. And right now, in fact, it's we're in the dog days of summer for another week until the 11th.
Yeah. And then Christmas, it's debated still, like if it's really the Son of God's birthday. Other people say that. I'm just saying that because other people say that to Jesus or whatever. But the son of the God. I started spelling it instead of saying it. I just slipped up there. Um, real spiritual, not religious, little Santa hat, but theirs were a little funnier looking. And then they inversed the roles. They serve f- festival or feast for the workers, the slaves, right? You know that one, right?
Yeah, look, I have looked into that, and all these different high points of the year are seemingly worshipped with modern excuses. I happen to think 9/11 is probably Jesus' birthday because we're talking
Yeah,
about
yeah,
born of a
yeah. No,
virgin.
I've heard that, and it makes sense. You know, I've heard that makes sense, but I'd have to dive into it a little bit more to really latch on to the sense it makes. But I've heard that numerous times. 9/11, and it would make sense that they would do that if
And,
they're into the time of year and the lining of the astrological bodies and the numbers. The days have numbers on them. The days have planets on them. Every day has a planet associated with it. You know.
exactly, exactly. I point to this to make the point to people who are asking about it. I'm like, well, look, you're playing cards, 52 weeks, 52 cards, 4 seasons, 4 suits.
Mm-hmm.
And when you break
Yeah,
it
I remember
down,
you saying
it's all over the place. The astrotheological template is underscoring everything. It's the basis, I think, for the world stage drama, is the actual uh, Babylonian calendar.
that. Yeah, it does go back to Babylon, in my opinion. Um, I remember you saying that about the 52 weeks, and I'm into cards, right? Because I got a deck of tarot cards and I fart around with them, and I learned from doing that, and I like playing cards because I was in prison before for a little while. You ain't got nothing to do in there. I read books and played cards, and the original like cards, like the old school ones, like if you got a four of diamonds, there's just four diamonds. There's no number on it. And I heard like it came from like Italy in the Renaissance or something. I could be totally wrong, but I have looked into this a little bit. And those playing cards were like, I don't know what came first, chicken or the egg, but they were originally regular playing cards were tarot cards. And there's people that still do tarot out there with a regular deck of cards, but they
Yes.
don't have numbers on them. They have like uh, five of spades, and it's got five of spades, no number.
Well, the
And
basis is this.
they read the card through the shape and what the shape means. So it's kind of a different symbolism, but it's still symbolism.
Yeah, and if you are still
Yeah,
basing it on the 4 elements and the 4 seasons, every card
yeah, and they
is a.
they, they put elements. The elements was every spade, diamond,
Look,
clover.
you can
It's all.
find a playing card associated for the day that we're on right now. And so the idea of reading the future, it's kind of tied into, of course, the very idea of these cards representing time, and you're shuffling it up and you're divining the future. But no, it's true that the playing cards are derived from the tarot cards, which are combined with a separate deck, which has the Fool, the Death, the Hanged Man. But
The joke.
yeah, those are the trump cards, the major arcana,
Mm-hmm.
and that's a separate deck
Yeah.
that's more based on the Hebrew alphabet, and it's more
Oh,
kabbalistic. But they've combined the two, and the combination of these two decks is what people consider the tarot these days. But you could read off just the cards if you were into that, in theory.
well, I got a regular Rider Waite deck, and I don't use it much, but I just like I just draw three. I shuffle them. I've done it for people too. I shuffle them, draw three cards, and then flip them up, whether they're inverse or straight, and then I read the book. They give you a little book that explains all the cards, and then I just read the book and I kind of like figure out the symbolism, how it relates to me. Because I'm into signs and symbols, so it's like it works. Like I could do it.
Well,
So
look at the Emperor card and compare it to Elon Musk in his red suit of armor, and you'll find overlapping symbols, not just the color, but also the ram's head, which is a reference to Aries and Mars. And the more I dug into
I
it,
remember you saying that. Yeah, I
yeah,
remember you saying that.
in other words, the
Actually, it's funny. In one of my horoscopes, I guess because I'm Aries, um, like the Emperor card is related to me too. Um, so yeah, the Aries, and I remember you talking about that.
Well,
And
yes,
I have to look at.
what they do though is I'm talking about this elite cabal, is they encode their idols today, their living idols, using the same body of symbols. So the Mars, they say, is associated with the number four, the color red, the metal iron, and the ram. Well, here you have, and the falcon, Horus. Well, here you have Falcon 9, red armor, the ram, Iron Man, Tony Stark. It's just like, okay, I can see what they've done here with this Musk character and many others. There's a body of symbols and symbol groups, and you can kind of read if you know what their body of symbols is, if you know their
Yeah,
language.
yeah, so I totally agree with you. Yo estoy de acuerdo. Um, and when I say about Musk, like if people ask me, like, dude, he's like the richest guy in the world allegedly, or give or take whatever month it is, right?
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah, he's
why the hell? Why the hell would anybody trust him?
good question. Look, anybody trusting Musk is trusting the guy that's really in charge of faking space on the civilian side more than anybody. He's far more active than any of the other characters like Bezos or Branson. And I'm like, well, trusting him is like trusting NASA. But it's weird how they give the public a hero to follow. So he's big on the same culture war issues, and now
Well, they love
suddenly
to do that, don't they?
it works. People follow him. People who
They
should
love
know
to do
better.
a boogeyman, a hero, and like I'm kind of speaking out of my knowledge here, but I'm pretty sure the Greeks did that with the theater.
Well,
Whoever started
it's
the theater.
certainly true that if you look at the way they practice, whether it's Wicca or Freemasonry or Thelema, the way they practice is they don't use an idol that they pray to like a statue, but they get a living person to wear the costume, to embody it as like a role, and that's part of this theory of idol worship, or the theory and practice of idol worship is living idols.
Yeah, they
Idolatry is
love
real.
that.
It's the main religion today.
Yeah, I mean, we all live in America. I mean, most of the people that listen right now, right? I mean, look at Hollywood. It's nothing but false idols,
Last year I was talking about Yay.
and it's called Hollywood.
Yeah, Hollywood, the
You're right,
Hollywood, the
bro.
Druids, and it all ties into movie magic. And last year though, I was talking about Yay because I believe the Kardashians epitomize the idol worship. So we were watching Yay West fall, taking that fall from grace, and I believe that that's kind of what we're seeing ritually, is they're putting the worst examples of what represents the West so that we can watch it fall. The too big to fail types like Sam Bankman, Trump, obviously, but it's all to me part of a big scripted takedown of the West as an inauguration to the new age.
Yeah, uh, the Kardashians are the epitome of idol worship. That's what I always thought.
Exactly, and my point being, even Ye was saying that it was pornography, it was Hollywood that ruined his family. So you see him even recognizing it was a terrible influence on his life. But my point is that we're looking at somebody who's raised up on a high pedestal, and then we see them being brought down, and his name is West. And this corresponds to all this talk. Even Greta Thunberg says that the West needs to fall because it's built on racism and oppression and pollution. So this is just a reoccurring theme. Westworld also embodied this idea. And I think the Titanic and the Twin Towers, the West is Babylon. Look at the Cathedral of St. John the Divine in New York, where it has New York being flooded and the towers being hit by a tidal wave. It puts New York as Babylon in Revelation.
Yeah, I mean, this is the new Babylon,
And what's
right?
the Tower of Babel? Earth to heaven. I think the space program is, and the consolidation of everybody with the internet is actually the Tower of Babel. And I think Bezos and Musk are a big part of the story. And I think Bezos actually represents the builder of the tower, Nimrod.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I remember you talking about stuff. I agree. Everybody's got different perspectives, but I definitely buy by yours.
Yeah, well,
Um,
I'm looking at how they're telling stories that frame our realities and how they freely borrow and template our modern contemporary world off the Old Testament. It's unbelievable, but they pull this off all the time in so many areas. And I'm like, well, not only is Bezos a perfect representation of Nimrod, he's based on Dr. Evil who lived in the Space Needle, but he's building a helix like Tower of Babel building right now in Virginia. Like everything about him is
another one?
well,
I thought the other one was in Seattle.
no, it's in Virginia, but he's from Seattle, and of course, Doctor
Oh.
Evil lives in the Seattle Space Needle, which is sort of another Tower
So
of
that
Babel.
Tower of Babel looking thing is in Virginia,
It is, but what is a Space Needle?
like the BIS in Switzerland,
It's all the same thing. A tower from heaven to the earth. The
right?
Space Needle
You know that
represents the
one, right?
same. A rocket represents the same. It's about going to God's turf.
Yeah. Well, back in the day, they could only build a tower. Now they got rockets.
Exactly. And when
Yeah.
Bezos,
And
okay,
I
check this
don't
out.
remember me ever. I don't.
Well,
Oh, go ahead.
oh,
Finish.
well,
Yeah.
Bezos when he went to the edge of space 2 years ago. Do you remember what time they had him launch?
No, I didn't follow close enough.
9:11 a.m.
Oh, of course. It's either that or 3:33, right?
Well, the 9/11, I think, launch time, and it was the anniversary of Apollo 11. Yeah, I think it has a few meanings there, but it just kind of reiterates this idea that the Tower of Babel, the Twin Towers, it's going to fall. That's kind of what I'm seeing here.
Yeah. Well, I've been meaning to say to you, but I'm trying to let you talk because I have a problem with cutting people off. But yeah, it's as old as Babylon, as far as I could tell. You know what I mean?
Well, absolutely. In fact, when I talk about Musk being a composite, I would even include Jack Parsons as part of his composite character. And when Jack Parsons came on the scene with that whole Babylon working, it was about how in this new age, they updated the names of the gods. So instead of Isis and Osiris, it's Babylon and the beast. So they quite literally worship the goddess by the name Babylon.
Yeah. Well, who was Jack Parsons friends with?
Well, Marjorie Cameron, Babylon Incarnate, and L. Ron Hubbard, who
Well,
builds us
allegedly,
the
yeah,
Scientology.
yeah, like Ron Hubbard and Crowley, right?
Absolutely. And look, when I say that NASA's a space religion, it's literally the same thing as Scientology. It's a space religion. Made up. It's a
Yeah, I
made
agree.
up space religion. In fact, we might as well look at it that way that the world is, especially now with the COVID thing and lockdowns and quarantine, you could hardly separate the average mind controlled person from a brainwashed Scientologist.
Um, well, I mean, think about it. They're talking about AI, all these freaks and in the groups, the Leffers group and Bilderberg. They're all talking about how AI is going to eventually be like represented as God because it's going to do everything and they're going to brave new world people into desensitization to this type of stuff, which they're doing right now. I mean, it's probably 40, 50 years down the road, but
Well, Hollywood's
I mean, I'm
protesting.
43.
Like,
I'm 43, so I'm definitely planning on being around till I'm 100 if I could do it.
well, Hollywood actors are protesting because they believe that AI is threatening their jobs, and it's true. I mean, it really is. Chat GPT, Claude AI. I'm finding a lot of use and utility, but the idea that it's sentient is a joke. But the masses will believe it. If there's a sophisticated enough technology, they will assume divinity. They'll assume supernatural. They will assume aliens. So this could be the alien invasion. The alien invasion may not be Roswell type characters, but it might actually be artificial intelligence becoming seemingly sentient enough to where it could fool people.
Well, they're
For,
going to try to merge it with flesh, transhumanism. It's in the Bible, and all these people talk about the transhumanism, and that topic from a matter of perspective, like, is what the Bible talks about with merging. I don't know the scriptures, but like I said, I'm not religious.
iron, iron and
Spiritual.
clay. Yeah, you're right. I think there is something to it
Yeah,
because the
something like that.
you combine space travel, transhumanism, and scientism and climate change. And you pretty much have the old religion rebooted. You got transcendence, trips to heaven, you have sin, and you have the wrathful God. Like they really have brought transhumanism as a replacement faith. The idea that science is your savior and it can give you eternal life if you just follow the science.
Yeah, and the transhumanist android type entities, you know, technology and human flesh is like your Nephilim babies or whatever, right?
Absolutely. And look, I see a lot of people today with the whole alien hype thinking that aliens will bring us salvation if you just believe. What we're seeing, I believe, too, is a replacement for angels. So all these people who think they're scientific because they believe in whatever NASA tells them, they're just a new iteration of Christianity in many ways. And that's why I don't think it's a coincidence that Musk comes out with a glowing cross when he's the head of the space, becoming a multiplanetary species. He's like this part of the space papacy. Well, just like Constantine had a vision of a glowing cross and he united the empire, Musk had the glowing cross. Like, I think we're living in a templated, scripted reality. There's no other way to describe it.
Yeah, the whole X thing is weird. This whole like obsession over X is weird. You know,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, didn't name his kid that or whatever.
Hey, actually, we brought something up. We just watched Newsbenders, and in Newsbenders, it was a computer that was actually behind it all.
I'm not familiar with that, but
Oh, you have to
I'll
watch it.
follow
It's
you.
it's on my
Yeah.
channel. Newsbenders is about a guy who gets hired to work for a news agency at a very high up level, and he finds out that they're writing the news 5 years in advance, like what we talk about.
What platform is it on?
It's on my YouTube channel, just youtube.com/Infinite Plane Society. It's a play from
Is it like a
1968.
documentary or
No, it's a 30-minute
oh, it's a play?
staged play.
Yeah.
It's really good. I mean, it really is because it suggests that since the
Posted in the videos on your channel.
yeah, we did a premiere the other day, so we watched it as a group because I thought this is something that every auto hoaxer needs to watch. It's a perfect description of what it would it look like if you had a small group of people who were taking creative control over the news reporting globally and if they started writing things years in advance. And I'm saying that newsbenders is a good way of describing the people who control our government/media complex.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds definitely agreeable because this. I mean, we kind of already caught that too, like the way they with all the news channels, like they'll have to play those clips of them saying the same thing, and then they loop it, and it's like a bad acid trip or something.
Well, and writing the
They'll
news
say the same
years in
thing on all
advance
the channels.
is something that we've kind of talked about as a hypothetical, but I think it's much more extreme than what this play can convey. But it talks about how it started with Hiroshima, and it got me thinking here that maybe the nuke all along was always this. If they can convince the public that this is real, they will have obliterated reality. They obliterated objective reality. They already ripped up the fabric of space time, and from then on, they took total creative control. And I think that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not there. I mean, I can't really say with the nuke thing. I wasn't there, but I think that potential of energy is possible on this planet.
Well,
You know,
I would say that
I
it's a
I believe in free energy through frequency. You know, it's just a matter of harvesting said energy. Like storing it like and creating like a massive energy. Like it's energy's everywhere. But I don't know. I mean, I wasn't there. I don't know nothing about nuclear.
Well, look, I think nukes do this. I think the fake nukes give tremendous political power because it changed geopolitics for all time. It changed the dynamics of the game. The whole world was reset with the advent of the potential for anybody having a bad day in a position of power to hit a button and blow everything up. It's not even a remote possibility in my mind, but the fact that everybody believes it changed everything. So it might as well be real, is kind of my point
Yeah, I
here.
agree with that. Like 9/11 was around the same time everybody basically had cell phones in America. So like, I mean, maybe that's a bad perspective comparison, but I agree with what you're saying, and
Well, I mean, look, after 9/11, see, like 9/11, I think was one of the last major psyops where a lot of
yeah,
people were
that's what I
still
was gonna say.
a lot of people were
Sorry
still
for interrupting.
analog.
What I was gonna say. Look who's the one that was we America dropped it, and we're like that country, like the destiny of America. Like America's this thing everybody like on the planet. It's like America, right? Well, we're the ones that dropped the nuke.
Oh,
I think
look,
that says something. I don't know what.
well,
You know
look,
what I'm saying, kind of?
yeah, America has a secret destiny. I think Manly P. Hall wrote about this. America's Atlantis, and
That's the
America's
book
gonna
I
si-
haven't read it yet.
and America's gonna sink. I think that's the whole objective. The eagle is a phoenix, and we keep seeing the phoenix symbol, the dove symbol, the burning bat from the Christopher Nolan Batman series, all symbolizes the same thing: burn down, build back better. And I think that the American eagle, the
Mm-hmm.
phoenix, has to burn, and then the from the
Isn't
ashes,
that what
the
they said? Isn't that what they were saying? Who's saying that? Build back better.
well, the World
Was it
Economic
Trump or
Forum.
Biden? Oh yeah, yeah. That's
But hey, I appreciate the call very much. I got to head out of the office here in the
right.
next 10 minutes, but call back
Yeah.
anytime and definitely feel free to post links if you want to recommend other channels or videos. I'm definitely an open
Yeah,
platform.
figure it out. I gotta figure out the links.
Awesome. Yeah, look, if you're a Luddite, you can just tell us and somebody here will go search for it. You don't have to actually drop the links, but appreciate the call. Have a great night.
Yeah, you too. Okay.
All right, everyone. That's G33. Now, I want to say thanks to the callers again for helping me test out the audio. And if you want to give me some feedback in the chat, just let me know how it was. I will be going through the file and correcting levels after the fact. I'm also going to delete that ringer that might have woke everyone up. Elephant Tusk says, Tim, what do you think of those envelopes given to the elite at George H.W. Bush's funeral? I think that video's interesting, but we don't know what they. It's a nice thing, a nice notion to think that Trump 4D chessed them and they all had to see this letter and we laughed at their faces. But I'm no longer trusting the plan. Not that I ever did. Lickety says, if civilizations are bound to rise and fall naturally, then why not be in control? Now, I don't necessarily think they're bound to naturally, but I think that the power elite need to maintain a power disparity, so they have to keep everybody below them in ignorance, darkness, and poverty if possible. I mean, what do you think Build Back Better is about? This green world order, this Greta reset. Own nothing, be happy, eat bugs, watch Netflix, reduce your carbon footprint, ubiquitous home incarceration, lockdowns for climate change, lockdowns for misinformation. Whatever it is, they're conditioning people for this new vision of the world where we are willingly going into a dark age, which allows them to maintain total reality control. Jennifer Reeve says, caller was a bit low, but we could hear okay. Excellent. We says they can't sink this country. We have built-in protection. Well, I think they can. I mean, if you recall, 2020, our leadership were on their knees. In 2020, everybody obeyed some psychological operation that all the world governments agreed upon. That's the thing. That you don't have a country. You have yourself and you have your existence, but what you have is you're on a game board. And the countries' names are interchangeable. You don't have a globe. The world stage they give you is a construct. Maybe it's a ball. You haven't seen the curve. Take their word for it. But my point is, we're in a theater of psychological war. I call it the theater of psy war. And the idea that America is like better than China or Russia and they're fighting us and we're going to fight them in World War III. I'm sorry, but we all share a space station. They all share a backstage. They all share the same special effects. They all control the same types of mind control operations, the religions, the media. There's a uniformity and there's a monolithic control that says that there are no countries. And when they say, oh, I've been to space, and I looked down and I got the overview effect because I didn't see any boundaries. And I just saw one world that needs to be protected from man. And I came down to save the world. It made me an environmentalist. All these astronauts who claim they go up to space and they have some awakening, they're lying. But they're telling the truth about one thing. From their perspective, from the perspective of the astronauts and the people behind the green screen, the ones who are backstage, they know that there is only one order, that the one world order has always been here. It's not new, and you're not aware of it until you've been given that overview effect, which is what the astronauts get. They don't literally get it by going high, but they're high enough security clearance wise to know how things really work. And I would say that the auto hoaxers who take the off world stage perspective also have an authentic overview effect. I mean, I understand patriotism and tradition and all this stuff, but that's not the world we live in. And that's not a matter of opinion. 2020 should have opened everybody's eyes to the fact that there is a uniformity of intent behind the world elite. There is no competition. It's not multipolar. It's not communism versus capitalism. No, it's actually a uniform, monolithic control system that pre-existed this great reset, which is really just they're changing the window dressing. We says, Tim, that moment is past. Hopefully it won't happen again. Again, I don't really think that the world works in such a way that there's like bad guys in control and one day the sheep are going to change anything. I think the status quo is what they maintain and always have. And there's no indication that there's any kind of desire to upset the status quo. The Matrix movie really sums it up better than anything. There's no incentive for people to shake themselves out of the blue pill slumber. It's a nice dream. Why would anybody wake up from that? Into the Break says it'll happen again and again and again. Okay, Into the Break says people aren't as dim as the media would have you believe. Okay, explain to me Tim Pool. Very intelligent, decent skateboarder, looks at a screen and says, oh no, these Boston Dynamic robots are cool right now when they're dancing, but wait until they're packing AR-15s. They don't exist. It's total CGI, total computer generated. So it's not about intelligence here. It's about perspective. And the most intelligent people in the world sitting in a theater looking at a stage magician will be fooled. You could have an IQ of 200 and you will see boats go over the horizon. It's about perspective. Until you get out of the seat, until you break the frame of reference, until you recognize the magic show for what it is, you're gonna be duped. That's the way this works. It's not about intelligence. It's about perspective. And the perspective we have, the off-world stage perspective, allows us to have more information, and it gives us the leeway to not rush to make a judgment without enough info. Elephant Tusk says, Tim, are you eating Taco Bell? I saw a video and the beans looked like dry maggots, which they poured hot water on. I don't eat at Taco Bell, but there is a Taco Bell here. About the beans and looking like dry maggots, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they just pour water on it. I mean, what do you expect? At some point, they're going to replace the workers with robots. It can't be that complicated. Into the Break says, Tim Pool hides his head. Oh, Tim Pool with the beanie cap. What's beneath it? I think it's transparent, and you just see a bunch of computer hardware like that Sophia robot the UN used to parade around before they got the younger animatronic Greta Thunberg. Now, yeah, Lean Dion says Taco Bell won the franchise award wars in Demolition Man. And interestingly, before they shut down for 2020, all the Taco Bells here started doing delivery. I'm like, who orders Taco Bell? And then 3/11 happens, everything shuts down. Suddenly, there are no Mexican food restaurants in New Mexico. There's no new Mexican food restaurants. There's only Taco Bell. It's like, did they know something? There was a Wendy's that didn't shut down once for all of 2020. It was just nonstop, a line around the block. It was the only place open. And they too were also set up for delivery. Like, I think the corporations get incentives to go along with the big psyops. So you can bet when they pull an EMP, when they do a fake nuke, Walmart, Target, they're all going to go along with it. I wish I had more time. I want to talk about Walmart and Target and how they play into the left-right spectrum, and how Target had the satanic designer making the Baphomet clothes for children, how that was part of this intentional creation of a satanic panic on the right, because the right doesn't panic from viruses so much, but they do panic from sin. The left, they don't care about sin. They care about viruses. So you have the panicdemic, rather I call it the moral panicdemic, and the pandemic. You have the new version of sin, the old version of sin. COVID is a devil the atheists will believe in because they don't believe in the old school devil. There's so much to cover here, but the main thing is tomorrow, will it be a big deal or not? Look, get on the text alerts, because if it goes down, we're going to be live. We're going to be taking calls. G33, great caller, appreciate it. He says some commenters, yeah, I know. Some commenters are cruel. I just say ignore them. What else can you do? Or take it as constructive criticism. I mean, trolls say the weirdest things, though. I assume it's projection 90% of the time. And most trolls turn out to be snowflakes, or troll flakes, as we call them. Like you hit back and they crumble. Flakes. All right, this has been great. I'm going to be sending out the archives. I have to do a little bit of audio cleanup. I'm going to test it out, but I think everything's going swimmingly. So thanks for your participation in calls, and same time tomorrow. And of course, ips.monster.infiniteplane.live. Get on the newsletter. Don't miss anything. Stay in the know. Lots happening in the coming days. And again, tomorrow, 216th day of the year, Obama's birthday. Will Trump